Stephanie Wu is our guest today, and here's what I got out of it, and that's why you should listen. Stephanie has this balance between being an educator, someone who works in the Montessori world and really develops the next future of entrepreneurship. But at the same time, she gives us true tools of how you develop either people work under you or your kids or your students and develop an ability to be resilient, successful, and an entrepreneur. Stephanie Wu, thank you for being here. It's really great.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, perfect. So, look, our podcast is about unmasking like success and really dealing with what failures are and successes are. I have a question that is not in our subject, but I think it's kind of giving us a little bit of background. Why Montessori? How did you get to be a Montessori teacher and then owners of many schools?
That's a good question. So the name of our school is Miss Lamb, and Miss Lamb is my mother.
Oh, that's so cool.
And she was the first person to bring Montessori to Taiwan 40 years ago.
Do people call you Miss Lamb by mistake because I think you are also Miss Lamb?
Yes, they always do. Yes, and I have to correct them every time.
Yeah.
I'm Miss Stephanie.
Exactly. Miss Stephanie or Wu? Miss Wu?
No, they call me Miss Stephanie.
Oh, very good.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the way we call all of our adults.
Yeah.
So anyway, my mom, I was 8 actually when my mom started the school. So I never went to a Montessori school, but I watched her build these schools, basically from the first to the second, and now, we have, 14 locations.
In Taiwan, 14
Taiwan,
locations.
yeah.
Wow.
So my mom, she's in her late 70s, and she is as involved as ever. I've never met a, person as energetic as her. And it's something she's really passionate about. And so anyway, I was a rebellious, your mom wants you to do something. You're like, no, I'm going to do the exact opposite. And so I was a rebellious teenager, basically for, 30 some years.
A long teenage life. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And it wasn't until I was sort of in my mid-30s and I suddenly found myself married and pregnant. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do with these two when they come?
You're twins.
Yes, that's right. I have twins. And anyway, they came, and I called my mom every other day for sure to get her advice. And she gave me such unbelievably effective advice that I thought, actually raising twins is not that hard. Because I got to know a lot of twin moms, and they all aged 10 years and 1 month, and they're all struggling. Nobody is sleeping. Everybody's miserable. But I thought, actually, you know what? I'm really enjoying this. But really, it's thanks to my mom. And
so walk me through it for a second. So your mom brought Montessori. Montessori about 100 years old. Am I correct?
120.
Started by 120 years old, and started by Italian woman, right?
Yes.
From what I know. Your mom saw it somewhere or got exposed to it, probably got trained in it, and then brought it to Taiwan, right? But you did not go to your mom's schools.
No.
So it was more about, correct me if I'm wrong, it was more about getting experience the results and the benefits of Montessori without being in the system.
You mean for myself?
For yourself. I mean, because if you didn't go to a Montessori school, but when your mom gave you all those advices with the twins, then you said, you know what, this is actually quite brilliant. I should go and learn it myself.
I didn't go to a Montessori school, but I think that my mom raised me in a very Montessori way because I basically, the only thing I remember from my childhood is being in my room, just doing my own thing. So I was really into art. I loved to, write, and I loved to draw and do puzzles and things like that. So I spent a lot of time in my room. And my mom, she basically left me alone. And
Is that the Montessori way?
The Montessori way is to allow children to really focus in on what they want to do. They have a lot of choice in the matter, okay? And they get to be very independent.
At what age?
Oh.
And I'm sorry I'm asking basic questions. I just don't, even though my 2 kids went to Montessori school for a few years, I never studied the kind of the philosophy
Yeah.
behind it. So
No, it's a great question.
So in what age do you let them do whatever they want? Not whatever they want, but more freedom, right?
More
I don't
freedom
wanna- I don't. Yeah.
from the time they're born.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Is it because if you don't mind, is it because you trust that the kid is going to find its own way, or is it because failing is a part of growth? Which one is it? Or
both of those. But when the children are young, meaning like when they're in their 1s, 2s, and 3s, you can trust them completely. They will go for the thing that is the thing they need the most for their best development. So you have your 2-year-olds come in, they have a classroom full of materials, and they will beeline for the work that they want to do. And the teachers will observe that and will give them a lesson there. And then the teacher's observing to see, what they seem really interested in that. What aspect is it interested? Are they interested in water? Right? Because water is a very sensorial thing. Lots of 2-year-olds, 1-year-olds even, they love water.
Yes.
Is it that they're working on their gross motor balance, right? And then they really like to carry heavy things. 1.5-year-olds, they love to carry heavy things. You think you want to help them with everything. It's the exact opposite. You want to give them, we have children carry tables to set up, lunch. They carry chairs. We have them bring in boxes. That's the thing that young children want to do. And when you give them that kind of environment where they get to choose what they want to work on, and you can trust that they are going to choose the thing that's best for them, not what you think is best for them, but what they think is best for them, they will very quickly find out what, they will know themselves, and and we give them all the time. Like in the morning, we have a 3-hour work cycle from 8 to 11.
What's a work cycle? Sorry.
Yeah, a work cycle is where the teacher just lets them for 3 hours. Your child is allowed to explore the classroom and, get lessons on the things that they want to get lessons on and work on something.
Okay, so explain to me literally how it looks. So I drop my kid, let's say they're 3 years old, in your class, in one of your schools, and for the first 3 hours, is there different material and stuff in the room and they can walk to wherever they want to have a task, or they're just freely to do whatever they want? If they want to take a nap, they can take a nap. If they want to play with something, they play with someone by themselves or with someone. Explain to me how actually it looks.
Okay. So imagine a classroom, all the materials and all the lessons are displayed on the shelf, all the materials that they would work with. Okay, so it's very hands-on, right? So we teach math in a very hands-on way, language in a very hands-on way, science, all the subjects. And a child, in the very beginning of school, it's a little different because the children, if they're brand new, they have never been to Montessori before, then the teacher will give them, will basically give them some lessons based on their understanding of this age group. And then the teacher's observing to see what catches their interest. And then they will give a follow-up lesson that's either related to this thing. For example, if they're really interested in water, then we might start with washing your hands. That might progress into watering plants. And then that might progress into, table washing, or washing dishes. So we have a whole series of activities that children can do if they're very interested in one thing.
Okay, so the water example is connected to many things, all right? So you say keeping clean hands, right? That's one thing, right? But also, how does water works and what's the impact of water on plants? I mean, it sounds, because you said 3 examples, and each one of them is a very different fields. Is the whole idea is that one thing can connect to many subjects?
Yes.
Okay.
So the way it works in the 3 to 6 classroom versus the 6 to 12 classroom is very different. So when children between 0 and 6, they have what we call the absorbent mind. So they're effortlessly absorbing whatever's in the environment. And so when you give them a lesson, you show them exactly how to do it. They will do it exactly the way you did it. Okay, it's actually amazing. And so you have to be careful because if you're pouring water and you put you try to put your hair behind your ears, the child will pour water and then then just do that action, So they're
really mimicking the adult's behavior.
They're absorbing it all. Whereas in elementary, they start to develop what we call the reasoning mind. So the reasoning mind is what you and I have. We have the reasoning mind, anyone over 6. It's a comparing mind. It's a, it reasons. It's trying to figure out why. Okay, so that's a child where you might go into water a little bit more scientific or more whatever of the other areas of water. But for the 3 to 6 child, all the things that I told you about, they might sound different to you, but for a child, it's just like my opportunity to work with water, and it really develops their fine motor skills, their gross motor skills, their sequencing, their memory of what comes next, their cause and effect. Yeah.
I love that. It's so. I love your passion around it. You can see the moment I ask a question about Montessori, it just comes to you. You come to life. You're like, you want it. That's your world, right? So go back to your personal journey. You were impacted. You suddenly had this new reality, married, twins. And then you're like, okay, my mom is brilliant. I'm going to listen to her. And then you found something about the way she talked to you about how to raise those kids that was like, that's very Montessori way of thinking, right?
Yeah.
So did you actually go to school?
I did. And then I took the twins when they were 5 months old, still breastfeeding, to Montessori training, which is...
You took them with you?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a highly intensive training. This particular one that I went to is for 0 to 3 years old. It's over 2 summers. It's 8 weeks each summer. It's from 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, and there's about 3 to 4 hours of homework every night.
Wow.
And because in Montessori, when you go to Montessori training, you don't get a textbook. You write your own textbook.
Really?
Okay, so for 0 to 3 training, you write 6 textbooks. You go to 3 to 6 training, you write 6 textbooks. You go to elementary training, you write 10 textbooks.
Does anyone check what you wrote?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so your homework is basically to write what you're understanding, and then someone reads it and say, that's not exactly what we mean?
Yes.
Which is very Montessori way of learning, right?
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So then I went to do my 0 to 3 training with the girls. And what was so great was I got to learn what to do with a 0 to 3-year-old child, and I went home immediately to apply it. It was so fun. It was amazing to watch them. I remember when we got that first lesson on teaching children how to cut with scissors, and then I went home and I showed my 15-month-old how to cut with scissors.
15 months old.
She was 15 months, yeah.
Wow.
And when I showed her that you make this action with the scissors and then the paper will fall in half. I mean, her eyes were so wide. I mean, she was in shock. It was such a beautiful moment.
Oh, that's so great. So, okay, so I get the training, but you own numerous schools, right? So explain to me the journey from understanding the philosophy, the methodology of Montessori to actually becoming an entrepreneur, because you're an entrepreneur, you're running a business. I mean, your business is education, you specialize in Montessori, but give me input into that.
Well, my husband, who was in finance, he actually decided that he was also interested in Montessori. So
he saw the results of the girls, of course.
Exactly. He was equally amazed. And so after I did my 0 to 3 training, he and I, we picked up our whole family and we moved to Portland, Oregon, where I did my 3 to 6 training. He did his 6 to 12 training. So, and he still teaches in elementary right now. And then, we were sort of deciding, do we, where should we go? New York is our home, and so we decided to, open our very first classroom in our living room in New York. And we started with 4 children. 2 of them were mine.
50% was, tuition was very
free.
Good for you.
Yeah, exactly.
School,
and then we grew from there. And we are a Mandarin immersion school, so a lot of people come.
Mean?
So
are you bilingual, basically, school?
Actually, we're Mandarin immersion, so we are 100% Mandarin immersion all the way.
So if I walk into your school, people speak Mandarin?
Only, yes.
Never English?
to the children, I mean, we'll speak English to you,
Yeah,
to the
well,
parents.
obviously, my Mandarin is between 0 and 0, exactly. But when my kid get dropped off at school,
Yeah.
only Mandarin.
Yeah.
How do they develop their English ability? Because you are a school in New York City.
Yeah. Well, children have the absorbent mind, right? And they're in the sensitive period for language. It means they are primed to learn language. So, so the more languages, the better.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my kids speak 2 languages, and the moment you teach them 2, 3, 4, it's easier than expanding beyond the first one.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know this, but when you're learning your mother tongue, it's you're sort of activating one side of the brain. But when you learn a second language, or when you have a second language in your environment, it activates another side of the brain. And once that side of the brain is activated, it's easier to learn a third, fourth, fifth language. Okay? So children, as long as they have someone physically there speaking to them, because they don't learn through screens, they don't learn through audio, they need to learn really through a person-to-person interaction. If they have at least somewhere like 1 to 3 hours a week with a live person, they could actually quite comfortably learn 5 languages.
Wow.
So why would you not utilize,
Of course.
the plasticity of the brain at that time that's just primed to do this? So yeah.
Okay, I have so many questions. One is, many kids, including mine, are exposed to more than 3 hours a week of a different language. Let's say Spanish. They don't speak fluent Spanish. So where's the gap, right? So first of all, my question is, even though people send, because most schools, public, private, expose the kids to second language. Most Americans do not speak fluently another language. Is it that they started too late? Is it the methodology that is not working? What's the thing that, because you said 3 to 5 hours and boom, you can actually speak another language?
Yeah. So it has to be between 0 and 6.
Oh, got you.
Okay, because that's when they're primed. And they don't. And the beauty of the absorbent mind is it learns effortlessly, pretty much effortlessly. But after 6, they need to put in effort to learn those languages, and then at that point, interest is very important. So if they have it but they're not that interested, their friends don't speak it, it's not cool to speak it, then it's very difficult for them to do that. But before 6, when they're, I would say like the prime age is, you really want to get started quite young. 2, 3, then they will be able to have that language, but how you teach the second language is also really important. So I have some really adorable parents. They just like really want their kids to learn a second language, and so they will say something in English and then repeat it in Chinese or French or Russian, whatever it is that their home language is, and then they go, and then so every time they speak with them, they go
teach them
English.
to translate versus thinking that language.
Exactly.
I got you.
Exactly.
Which for me was a huge. I came to New York when I was 21. I grew up in one language, in Hebrew. I spoke English because you study in school, the film, TV, etc. For many years, I had to translate, and there was a moment that I stopped translating. It was like I lived in English. And that was when I started to have freedom and fun with English, which I love as a language. So you're saying the same thing. It's like if you train them to translate, the mind is going to keep on just taking what you know and then translate it versus actually thinking, living in that language.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when the children come, parents, they're worried, like, is my child going to be able to understand because they've never been exposed to Chinese before? I said, don't worry, they just like... wherever they are, they just absorb whatever's in the environment.
What about that complaint? I meet people who are bilingual. One of the parents is from another place, and they said, our kid did not speak till they were 3 years old, and then we were worried about, or the doctor said we should be worried about it, and therefore I stopped speaking my mother tongue to my kid. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's very common.
The complaint is very common, or the problem? Is it actually a problem, or just have to trust?
So first of all, because every child has different abilities when it comes to language, it is actually individual as well. So some children, they love languages, and so they will pick up very quickly. Some take longer. but no matter what a child's, really key interests or key sort of strengths are in life, if they are in this environment, they will speak Mandarin.
So you're not worried about if someone is
No.
quieter? No, it's amazing because parents are really worried.
Yeah.
That we can talk about it for a while. We should talk about it. You're saying even if your kid, from your experience, from the success, that they're delayed in their development to speak languages, right? You just trust the brain; they'll be fine.
Yes, exactly. Provided that if it's just a language acquisition thing, it will come 100%. I always tell parents that because sometimes it doesn't come for a while, right? And so I will let parents know, what they are seeing. For example, if they see mimicking, that's very common. And if they do a lot of mimicking, we like that, right? But sometimes it's a matter of the mechanics of speaking, right?
Like
the tongue,
they're literally their body
something.
is not developed enough to use the tongue properly, or
That's right, or the jaws, that kind
muscles,
of thing. Yeah, exactly. Then it's a different story. Then they might need. I would advise parents to eat foods that require children to chew.
Really?
Because
that's great.
Lots of parents, they blend everything till they're 3 years old. And so children, or they cut everything
great
up.
how everything is connected, right?
Yeah.
You're you choose something that is crunchy and that will develop your kid's ability to speak a language.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just sharing my thoughts, and I would love your reaction. So you're only in Mandarin, right? And you go all the way to middle school?
We go through 5th grade.
Okay.
But we do.
How do you learn to write a proper essay or a proper paper in English if everything is in Mandarin?
Yeah. No, we're 100% Mandarin immersion until 4.5.
Oh, okay.
And then at 4.5, we have an English teacher just for 2 hours a day who is available. Doesn't mean your child's getting, an English instruction for those full 2 hours. Only if the child wants to come for an English lesson, or if the teacher has a lesson for them and they will invite them to come. But it's still 80-20 even in 1st and 2nd grade. So it's
and
not
you don't see any problem with your graduates because you have enough. You've been around for long enough. Your kids probably get to the best schools in New York City.
Yeah,
public and private. They never have an issue with writing.
Never. Our 5th graders, we just did the state test, and I would say 75% tested, 95 percentile and up.
Wow.
Yeah, and across all subjects. Yeah.
This is so great because here's my experience. I have I have 3 kids. My 2 are in college, and then we have 1 in high school. So I'm towards the end of hands-on parenting. But my experience, especially younger parents, and maybe it's a cultural thing. I think it's a cultural thing also, is that they're very worried and they're very hands-on. When I think about my childhood, I could take my bike and ride to a friend. I came by myself from school when I was 6 years old and cross streets, and it was a 20-minute walk, no big deal. And now we are such helicopter parents, right? Like the culture is all about controlling. And you're saying something very different. You're saying trust the brain, trust the development. If I hear you correctly, trust the ability to learn another language. Is there a clash between the culture we live in, which is all about, I think, over protecting our kids, over controlling what we think they should know or not know, and your methodology and the Montessori methodology?
There really is a big difference.
Is there a clash between the two? Do you actually have parents that come and you say, chill, relax, trust the process?
We need to. It's a good thing that a lot of children, they come to school, they're at school for 8 hours a day, so which is the majority of their day they're at school. And they're with adults who, trust them, who trust the way who understand how their brain is developing and know that, with a brain that's developing at this stage that looks like this, what they need is X, Y, and Z. And the environment that we create is exactly a match for what they need, right? And then they go home, they have parents. I mean, I have so much empathy for our very nervous, anxious-ridden parents, and we do have a number of those. Believe me.
Of course, every group has one.
Yeah, but I always let parents know that we have to follow children's interest. Interest comes up over and over again. By the way, did you know that the founders of Google both went to Montessori school?
I didn't till now.
Yeah,
I know there's a bunch of them, right? It's a known thing. Jeff
Yeah.
Bezos, didn't Jeff Bezos
Yep.
also?
He went to
Yeah.
Montessori school, and
Yeah.
he said that, he was so focused on his work that his teacher had to literally pick him up, to put him on the playground because he was just so focused on his work. Imagine
Yeah.
that, right?
That ability to be fascinated by a problem you want to solve. And by the way, that's what Amazon is, right? Solving
Yeah.
a huge problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who's one of my favorite,
course.
Nobel Prize winning author, Beyonce, Taylor Swift,
Yeah.
right? Julia Childs, Stephen Curry. So many people across many different arenas. It's not like they only produce artists or they only
Yeah.
produce entrepreneurs. No, they produce people who are interested in what they are interested in.
So
and they
when
can
you
go
say that to
deeply
a
in it.
parent,
Yeah.
and let's just say I'm one of the most nervous. Again, I don't think parents see themselves as nervous.
No,
They
they
see
don't.
themselves, this is the right thing to do, and they're very righteous about it. And they feel like they need to protect their kids. I think they're putting their own anxiety on the kid. That's my 5 cents about it. But and you say, no, trust it. And here's all those lists of highly successful people who came out of the Montessori systems and way of thinking. Do they trust you and let your teachers and you do the work? Or do they?
I would say for the most part they do, because it's all about what you see on the other end. It's all about what you see when the child goes home, right? So
What do you see? How does a successful graduate of your system look?
I would say that academically they are very strong. Okay, so let's just put the academics
Yeah.
and get that out of the way. But they are. I would say that they're quite self-disciplined. They know what they need to do, and they know they need to do it. And if they don't like something, they know, okay, maybe I just need to do it and get it over with. Do they complain? Of course they do.
Yeah, they're kids. They're human beings still. You didn't create robots.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. But they're okay with having to do things that maybe they don't like right now, because they know when I get this done, I can do the thing that I really want to do. And the other thing is, they all have a strength that is just like, oh my God, like, did you see the way they, so first of all, they all do research presentations, right? So in their research presentations, everyone has their own topic that they've chosen. They do writing, they do, artwork related to it, they do workshops related to it that they teach other people. Whatever it is that they want to design, it really will boggle your mind. I know that there are children who I think if they did not go to our school, they would be labeled as, I don't know, ADHD, disruptive, can't concentrate, a whole bunch of things that they would probably need to be in the remedial class, need special attention. I can see that about some of our children.
Yes. Just to share from my experience, I remember there was a year where a bunch of teachers complained about one of my kids, that they're disruptive and they're not interested and not engaged. And I walked out of the parents-teachers conference saying, okay, I see the problem, but the problem might be with you.
Exactly.
Not because my kids are perfect. My kids are far from perfect. They're human
Yeah.
beings, right? There's amazing things and not amazing things about them. But I was like, if you got to find a solution to engage my kid. If you complain about it, maybe you should look into, instead of let them follow exactly, let them sit for hours and hours, which is insane, right? Without doing anything, and then you demand a 11-year-old or a 13-year-old to sit there for 8 hours. It's just crazy.
I know. But the thing is, for most teachers, I empathize with them, because they
With the teachers or with
the teachers.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you
Oh,
why.
you mean from...
Because most schools, traditional schools, the teacher is teaching the same material to 20 students, right? You have 20 students. They're all different, they're good. They have all different capabilities, different interests, different age, different maturity, different social, interests. And then you want them to learn the same thing.
So you have to cut the edges. You
Yeah.
have to put them all in one channel, right?
That's right.
Because that's the only way to manage the same material for 20 kids or 40 kids or whatever.
So I'm not surprised that you have to use systems like, if you're not paying attention, then, after 2 times, then you go from green to, yellow, and
Yeah.
then, after a few more infractions, you go up to red, because that's
I
the
went
only
straight
way.
to the principal, right?
Yeah,
That's my
exactly.
childhood. I was straight. It wasn't even like yellow, like I was like, Boaz, get up, go to the principal. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You had to, the teachers have no other way but to do that, right? Whereas a Montessori teacher, they are trained to do, you have 20 different children, they're doing 20 different things.
So is the training you provide for your teachers, because you also train your teachers, right?
Yeah.
Is it much more complex than a regular teacher who goes and gets masters in education from some grade school?
I don't think it's more complex, but it is a fundamentally different way of thinking about children and development and education.
So why is, again, maybe it's a provocative question, but that's my job here. Why is the system not fully Montessori 100%? Well, I mean, why don't we, if it's that great, and I think it sounds like great, and my kids went to Montessori for a few years, why don't we transform the system to be purely Montessori? Do you have a sense of it?
I have a lot of theories about it.
Well, share it. That's why it's called a podcast. You share your theories,
My theories, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that very few people really understand Montessori because it's just so fundamentally different from the way most of us grew up, right? To become a Montessori teacher, Dr. Montessori, she says that, it is the spiritual development. She used the word spiritual development back then, but I think what she really meant is that the teacher needs to examine themselves and needs to change and transform into a different human being to be able to say, okay, I respect every child's way. I'm simply a guide. In Montessori, we don't call ourselves teachers, we call ourselves guides because we are just guiding children. Because I have a lot of traditional teachers who come to us, and I had this one teacher who, there were two girls, they were fighting, and one of them said, well, I don't want to be your friend, I don't even want to walk with you to school anymore. And the teacher, when she heard that, she was so appalled that a child would say that to another child because she thought that was it was mean. She thought that was mean.
Mean, yeah.
And so she said, how can you say that? I thought you were a very kind, gentle child, and now I hear you saying that about your friend. And the child, broke down. It was a thing we had to really work with, right? But I understand that from her point of view, that's how she felt. But I said to her, our job as guides is to observe children sort of, like, here's a cup. Is it, I see that somebody had drank about 30% of it, there's a lipstick mark on it. There's my lipstick mark on it. And, it feels cool to the touch. So we're observing it versus I can say something like, wow, someone is, left a cup here and they didn't even take care of it. They just drank half of it. It's such a waste. And they just expect someone to take care of it for them,
Yeah.
So that way, that the judgment you have versus the observing and guiding is very, very different.
So you're demanding a complete change in culture to become a Montessori system, right? And you're saying currently the education system is based on judgment, like the way we live life, right, as adults, right? Judgment, big system, the whole thing. It's going to take much more than just training people to become guides.
It takes time.
Yeah. Is there any country in the world that actually is heavily Montessori?
There are a few countries that have a lot of public Montessori schools. I know that, for example, the princess of Thailand, like the royal family in Thailand, became very interested in Montessori. Montessori has become very big in Thailand.
And do they have results that can point to, because if what you're saying is actually working, and I know the graduate of your school, so I experienced it, why wouldn't we do that? Especially in small countries. Smaller than we can do, the impact could be much bigger. So I wonder what will happen if you have a whole generation of kids who raise in a Montessori. What will?
Well, you have people that, you have the
The
change
founder-
makers, the founders of Google,
and
exactly.
Beyonce and
And I actually have a lot of parents in my school who went to Montessori themselves, and they remember, and they are, very, well-to-do architects, very famous doctors. They're very well-to-do in their field. That maybe they're not as famous as those people,
Yes.
but there are lots of those people. Actually, we have a teacher who who graduated from our school in Taiwan when she was little, and then she came and decided to work for us as a Montessori teacher. So there are those people too. But I think that I think for one, Montessori is very misunderstood. Okay, and so it's something that is very deep and it takes time to understand. But I think a lot of people's understanding of Montessori is very surface level, including a lot of people who work in Montessori schools. Maybe who are administrators or who are the people who are doing your tours, who are there to educate the parents, but their understanding is also a little surface, right? Because if you're not able to let parents really understand what are the benefits and what are the long-term vision for Montessori, it's very, very difficult. I mean, then maybe the school next door, this private school, costs a lot of money. All their friends go there.
It's just easier because it's a language you understand. If you say, look, my kids went to this school, we paid a lot of money, let's say in New York City, private schools are very expensive, and then that led them to the right colleges, the right high school, right colleges. It's kind of like the New York City conversation about private schools. I just don't have to worry about it. I know it's a formula that works. I'm just going to send them. And Montessori requires more understanding.
It really does. Yeah. It requires a very, very thoughtful parent who, they first they see the results and then they will keep going. But it, requires them to really think, really observe their children. And the parent themselves needs to be the kind of parents who's willing to follow the child as opposed to
that's a tough one.
Vision that I have, like, children, they should be like this. I want them to go to the right schools and have the right jobs and
we have
marry
an
the right person.
attachment to how we think our kids should grow. You know? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, a question around that: the kids that are coming out of the school, right, and the parents who are supporting it. Is there particular parents that you find ongoingly coming back to your school, or do you think? If you look at the parents you have, and you have probably dozens and dozens of parents, they're from different background, different understanding, different cultures.
Yes, they are.
They
are
okay.
from.
But there's
all
something
kinds of
about the
backgrounds.
Montessori system that kind of makes them intrigued enough to try it.
I think it's just fascinating. I don't, because after our school, my daughters are in middle school now, right? They're about to go to high school. So and then I have twins, they went to different schools. So we've had experiences with other schools now too as a parent.
Yes.
And
But not only
Montessori.
Yeah,
They're,
traditional education.
One went on to a traditional school. We tried a Montessori middle school. We've done public school. We've really we've tried everything.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have yet to find a school that has the kind of community that our school has. I find that Montessori parents, they really think alike, and they are very, very bonded.
The parents, you mean?
The
not just
parents
the
in my
kids.
school, they go
hang out on the
camping
weekends.
together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, they have an annual camping trip. They
Independently of you. You sound like
independent.
you-
I know. No, I'm not part
You're
of
not
the
even
whatever.
invited.
I'm definitely not invited.
Yes,
they go. They travel to internationally together.
Wow.
They are like. I have a parent who said to me, "I found my best friend at Miss Lamb." I said, "Oh, your daughter. Yeah, I know your daughter has so many best friends." And she said, "No. I found my best friend
that's
here."
Great. What a compliment. Did Montessori change in the last 120 years? Is it is it just a philosophy that everything is based on, or do you see constantly innovation in the space of Montessori?
That's such a good question. I think that there has been change, but I feel like the way we talk about Montessori hasn't changed, and I think that needs to change.
Well, are you going to do it?
I would like to be.
When you train your teachers, you modify now. You're making it more modern, more.
Yes, I think it's the way we're talking to parents about it. It's also more modern. Of course, the way we talk to our teachers, but also, I think that, we have a framework for Montessori. I think nowadays people want to not just know the process. People want to know, what am I going to get when I come out of it?
Gotcha.
And
People want to see the results, or at least promise of the results.
yeah, and they want to know what the results will be. And
Yeah.
in the past, we used to talk about results like being very entrepreneurial, being very creative, being very
They
passion
want hard
driven.
facts. They
Yeah.
want So, do you have already a generation that went to great colleges from your school? You do.
Yeah.
So that's what parents in New York like to see. Like in every school you look into, they say we have last year 5 people went to Harvard and 10 people went to Brown, and all those things. And that's part of the thinking about higher education in America. Okay, let's pause a bit, because we can go for hours. It's fascinating. I can have this conversation for hours about Montessori, but let's just pause for a second. I want to talk about your business side. You're running a big operation. You have a substantial amount of revenues. Schools are expensive. Expenses are expenses. What is the most surprising thing you found when you became more of a manager and less of a teacher, hands-on educator?
I think that Montessori teachers, not all of them, but a lot of them, and maybe we're very lucky, we have just really, really great teachers. Those great Montessori teachers are also really self-disciplined, and they are able to, run on their own.
Well, it sounds like that's the Montessori, but if you listen to the last 40 minutes of our conversation, it seems like Montessori teachers, if they live what they're teaching, they will be more independent.
They
So
are,
your
yeah.
style is kind of let them make sure they're trained well and then let them run with the material?
Very much so. But I think the piece that is difficult for the teachers and then also for our administrators is to talk about Montessori in a way that parents really understand.
Do they need to understand?
I think they do, very, very much so, because we need them to collaborate with us at home.
The parents.
The parents, yeah. And so, if a child didn't indeed get a diagnosis, right? Sometimes parents really freak out, but it's helping them understand what it really means. Or a child who doesn't have a diagnosis yet, but we're seeing some things that maybe, if a child watches a lot of TV, for example, like we have families where, they come home every day, 2 hours in front of the TV.
That's their babysitter.
That's their babysitter.
Yeah.
You walk into the classroom, within 30 minutes, I look around, I could tell who watches TV at home and who doesn't.
Wow.
It's that obvious. Okay.
So I love that I asked you an entrepreneurial management question, and you went back to being an educator, which is fine. It's not a criticism. It shows you that in the core who you are. It shows to me at least that you're an educator, and business for you is it's almost like a self-expression of who you are. Is that correct?
It's very correct.
So do you look at the business as a pain in the butt that you have to deal with for the sake of you being an educator, or you see it as part of the process and it's no big deal?
That's so interesting that you would ask me that question.
I asked you a question about entrepreneurship and business and management, and you keep on being passionate. Again, it's not a criticism, it's observation, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm just observing. That you go back to the impact on the kids, the impact on the parents. So do you love management?
I do.
Okay, you do.
I
Okay, so
really
what do you
do.
like about, what do you love about managing all those schools and all that staff and all those parents? And
I think for me, it's a sense of responsibility, right? Because I know that people they send their most precious to us, and we are here to take care of them and make sure that they're on the right path. The parents themselves are also learning, right? They're also in this process, right? Being a parent is actually one of the most difficult things. And then the teachers and the administrators, they are, they're dedicating their life to this. I mean, they're at work like 8 to 9, sometimes even more, like hours a day. So it's my responsibility to make sure that everybody is taken care of. And
that's a powerful context to a business, right? Like you really are proud of what you're providing as a business.
Yeah. And I really think that one thing I really love about management is to manage people according to what they need, because I think everybody needs something different. So I have a lot of one-on-one conversations with, from, my cleaning lady to, the people who clean the hallway to, our assistant teachers to the cook who cooks the food at our school, not to mention our lead teachers, not to mention, the assistant administrator and all of that. So through all the levels of the school, one of the things I try to do is I try to have as many one-on-one conversations with them as I can to really understand what they need, what they want, where they're stuck, and that is, to me, is a very fulfilling thing, and the thing, and I train my, the person who is sort of next in line, next to me, right? Like, so she's the one who really, my operation manager, I train her to be somebody who gets to know each individual people,
So
know them
trying
individually.
to create a culture in the schools that really is committed and interested in the individuals. That's the culture creating beyond just your style of management.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay. And you come from, you were an entrepreneur for many years. You come from an entrepreneurial family from what you shared about your mom. What are the tools that Montessori develops to be a great entrepreneur? Or another way to look at it, what do you think as an educator that is a must or highly important things for an entrepreneurship, and how does Montessori provide that?
Yeah. I think it's really important to find people's interests and abilities, their unique interests and abilities. And that is for the students, because we are really teaching them each individually, and the staff. So does that answer your question?
I hear something differently. I hear what you're saying. From what you shared with me, I think one of the biggest challenges we have when I work with young entrepreneurs is that they have a unrealistic, twisted way of looking at failure. People think that life is linear. It's like you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and your success keep on growing till you become rich, famous, whatever the thing that is important to you. And life is never linear. One of the point of this podcast is we interview people from jazz musicians to politicians to entrepreneurs to educators, because every story strengthened my theory, which is life is about roller coaster more than a linear progression. And it seems to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that Montessori does not have a relationship to failure the way traditional education does. It's more of the experiment and the journey a kid goes on of trying things and failing, or not even failing, trying things and seeing the results, and then trying something else, seeing the results, and keep on developing that ability to live with the process of trying things and see how it's going to turn out.
I think that is so true, and I don't. Failure is not it's not a word really in my vocabulary. It's just you try this, it didn't work, or try the next thing. Okay,
Which
this
is
one doesn't
more
work, try the next thing.
scientific way of looking at it, because like scientists, they try and they try and they try and suddenly there's a breakthrough in their medical, examination or in some physics or whatever. But in business, if you fail, more internally to yourself, you're like, oh, I'm failing, I should not try again. So the Montessori way of thinking is, I think it's a great enriching soil to entrepreneurs, which is really cool.
I think resilience, people like to talk about resilience. I guess resilience is just having the mindset that there's no such thing as failure. It's just you just keep going until you you have to be clear where your road is, though. I think that is very, very important. If you're clear, that's what I want. And sometimes clarity is like a number. I don't think that is very empowering to just say, oh, I want to make however millions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
I think it needs to be a bigger picture than that. You have to have a sort of like an intention, something bigger than just a number, right? Bigger than yourself also.
Well, the number has to indicate something bigger. Like the number is just a number, right?
Yeah.
It's a relationship. Like if I have, I'm just saying, $20 million, it points to a particular level of success or influence, right? It's not just the number. That's why a lot of people that win the lottery lose their money because it's just a number. It has nothing to do with a manifestation of a commitment or size of impact you want to make. It's just a number, and they don't have the capacity to manage such a big number, so they lose it.
Yeah,
That's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole
okay,
other
last question. I promise you something I'm really curious about, and we hear a lot of feedback and interest in it. Is the world is completely changing, transforming with AI and machine learning. You're an educator. Our kids or our kids, I mean, I'm talking about 5, 10, 20 years from now, not even like 100 years from now, are going to live in from what it seems like, completely different world. How is your system prepared for it? Are you prepared for it? Are you thinking about it? Share with us a little bit about the Montessori, the Miss Lamb school. How do you interact with AI, with machine learning, with computers?
Yeah. I don't have the perfect answer.
I don't think anyone knows because we don't know what's going to happen.
We're just all guessing, right?
Yes.
I think that, the day our 3-year-old is raised by a robot, I would just be really worried about that day. I think that, I think children need to be raised by great human beings. I'm not sure if that is going to change.
No. What if it's a great robot? Seriously, like what if you teach all the things that are quote unquote a wonderful person? Because look at the example you gave earlier, where a parent comes home and they're busy with their life, so they stick the kid in front of a TV, and you can catch it. You said I can walk into the room and I can see who's watching 2 hours a day of TV. What if I put them in front of an amazing, educating, fascinating, fun, humorous robot?
Well, if the robot can teach them, right, to take care of themselves, prepare dinner,
Yes.
set the table, bake a cake, wash the dishes, then that would be a great robot. Like
exactly.
Then
Yes.
that would be great. How far away are we from that?
I have no idea.
I have no idea.
So you guys actually have those? Are you having those conversations? It's more for you a thought that's walking with you through the process of developing more schools and more teachers?
I mean, we're definitely utilizing AI, like in terms of, I use it every day. It's guiding us in many ways, like whether that's whether that's management, whether that's marketing, whether that's training our teachers and all of that. But I just feel like with children, they're going to need a human being, right? So, but I might be wrong. I don't know. Who knows,
exactly.
right?
We don't know. Well,
Yeah.
Stephanie, thank you so much for being here. I love this conversation because it's so different than what we generally talk about. And at the same time, it's the foundation of a great person, a great entrepreneur, a great person, someone who makes a difference in the world. And you are that. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Boaz.
Awesome. Perfect. Excellent. Playbook. Passion. Passion is very important. Passion is something that gets you up in the morning and gets you to jump out of bed and doing things, whether it's in personal life or in business. Playbook generally is about business in our podcast. So I want to talk about passion today. Passion is extremely important, but it's short-lived. What do I mean by that? You want to change the way you interact with passion. It's very important that you're very passionate and you care. You listen to our guests and you hear that they're very passionate about what they're doing. But it's an illusion to think that you'll be passionate at any moment. Businesses have periods of time or elements in their operation that is not going to create passion for you. They're not going to intrigue or excite you to do things. You got to find the balance. You got to find the beauty in doing things that are not exciting, because passion is a bigger picture. Passion is not just about, right now I'm inspired, I want to do it, I'm passionate about it. Yes, that's great. That's how you should start. If this business you're working on or the project you're working on doesn't get you excited, doesn't keep you up at night in a good way, like you cannot go to sleep because the adrenaline is running and you have all those new ideas, you shouldn't do it. But saying that, also you got to have a lot of compassion to yourself when things are not going well, Because when things go well, of course you'll be passionate about it. When you have a new relationship and you're in love and everybody's wonderful, everything is wonderful around it, you'll be very passionate about it. Yes, relationships also have times when you don't like that person as much, when you're being challenged, when you're being confronted by elements in that. And that is where passion disappears. Your job is always remember the big picture. Go back and think about, what is the reason I started this project? What is the reason I connected with that person? What was the original idea of my business? And that will keep that flame under your actions, that will keep the passion going. Because assuming that you're going to have passion at any moment of the activity is just disconnect from reality. No one can keep passion forever and ever. That's a playbook.